Welcome to Women, Life, and Science with Cecilia Zapata-Harms. Over the next hour, you will hear Cecilia and her guests discuss, share, and inspire you with the stories of life, careers, challenges, successes, stories about their own lives. Now, here is Cecilia.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. We have an incredible guest here on the show today. Dr. Charryse Johnson is our guest, author of Expired Mindsets, Releasing Patterns That No Longer Serve You Well. This is definitely an important discussion on how our own mindset can be the primary barrier to our growth and development. Before we begin, let me share Dr. Johnson's bio with you. Dr. Charryse Johnson is a veteran psychotherapist and mindfulness practitioner whose work focuses on the intersection of trauma, somatic integration, spirituality, and social justice. She is the founder of Jade Integrative Counseling and Wellness, an integrative therapy practice where personal values, the search for meaning, and the power of choice are the central focus. Charryse holds a BA in Human Development and Family Studies, an MA in Professional Counseling, and a PhD in Counseling Psychology with a concentration in crisis and trauma. And here's a little expert about the book. Dr. Johnson is boldly creating a new lane between the intersection of mental health, inclusivity, and a growth mindset. In this body of work, she is unapologetically challenging the rigidity and stigma that reduces human struggle to a sequence of self-help steps. As you read this book, you'll create a framework that allows you to investigate the diversity of your experiences through a lens of curiosity and understanding. And with that, let us welcome Dr. Charryse Johnson to Women, Life, and Science. So, Charryse, we're just so excited here. I always like to start to ask our guests to tell the story, where they're from, what brought you to where you are today, as a psychotherapist, as a writer, a little bit about family life. So tell us a little bit about you.
So I'll start with family life. I have been married to my college sweetheart. We just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary on July 25th.
Oh, happy anniversary.
I know, thank you. It's a huge milestone. And I have two children. My son is 21 and my daughter is 23, which is mind-blowing, and it goes so fast.
Okay, first of all, when did you get married? When you were like 15 or something? Because, oh my gosh, you look so young.
Thank you. No, I did get married fairly young. I was 22 when I got married. But yeah, people will look at us sometimes and then they start calculating and I'm like, we took course, that way. But yeah, and it's great. And I really do enjoy, I will say, being an empty nester and being still relatively young. You have a lot of energy, which is nice. And it's just great. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 children, empty nesters.
Yes,
you're in Charlotte.
2 children, empty nester, originally from Queens, New York. And then my family transplanted to Atlanta when I was in high school. And I'd say, when it comes to my story and my path around getting into becoming a psychotherapist and a writer, I, even as a child, was the person who would walk up to someone and go, "How are you really?" And I was always very concerned or felt like I had a sense of when people just needed encouragement or being talked to and very attuned to that. I was a school teacher during my early years, and part of that was due to my mom having cancer, which I talk about some in the book, and needing to choose a profession that would allow me to be with her. And during that time, even as an educator, parents would sit down and we're supposed to be talking about their kids and they would all of a sudden just start to cry and start to share all of the things that were going on, in their lives. And so not long after that, I knew it was now time, like the timing had opened up to move into psychotherapy. And I remember taking my very first class and I was blown away at what I was learning. And I thought, the world needs this information. It's great information to have, and I'm glad, and I want it to be useful. But from that point on, I decided I wanted to create songs and books and everything that I could think of so that the message of mental well-being could reach anyone. And that's pretty much how I got here.
Wow, that's fantastic. So it's almost like you had an innate desire to actually pursue this,
Yeah.
just from your own personal experiences, of course, but it was a natural sort of evolution for you from being a teacher into psychotherapy.
Yeah.
So let's go right into the book, because the book is, I think there were some funny parts in there. At the same time, funny as in like lighthearted,
Sure.
but at the same time, it really sort of reminded me, and actually reminded other people that I've talked to about it, that there is foundations of our mindsets, but it's okay to change it. I mean, we can change it.
Yeah.
Right? We give us the permission. And that's basically what I got from your book also, is you're giving us the permission, or we give ourselves the permission to change the way our mindsets have, I don't know, been programmed.
That's a great word. Yeah, because, that innate part of me also constantly wondered, well, what's the difference between people that go one direction versus the other when they've had the same experience? Right? If they've had a very similar experience, whether that's in a family or just what they have gone through, what made one person different from the other? And that pulled me into the concept of healing from past experiences, mindset, and then recognizing what mindsets we have adopted because that's what we've always been told versus which mindsets actually align with who we are as a person, and knowing like it's okay for me not to believe exactly like my mother or my father or my grandmother or my culture, that I'm still allowed to take the parts of that mentality that are beneficial, but I can diverge so that I can fully step into myself.
Yeah, go a little deeper in that one, because I think the inspiration probably to write this book came from your own personal experience and your family history or what have you.
Yeah.
But what was that sort of like thing that really pushed you to write this book?
The thing that pushed me to write the book was honestly the pandemic, in truth. I was working with individuals, talking with friends, family, and realized that there were so many people who felt like their cracks were exposed. And one of the things that a lot of individuals mentioned was, I'm home now, everything that's slowed down, but the things that are coming up for me are not recent. They're things that have happened to me years ago that I have no idea why it's coming up now. So they kind of sat through that stillness, forced stillness, but it really had them start to become introspective around, wow, I didn't realize this was still there. Maybe I haven't dealt with this as much as I thought, or I didn't realize how much this impacted the way I was living life. But now that I can't do that anymore, I don't have any other tools. I don't know what else to do because maybe I kept myself busy or I was achieving or overcompensating. And all of those coping skills, in air quotes, have now been diminished, and it left people flooded. So our phones as therapists were ringing off the hook. They still are. We are turning away people right and left. And so I was like, I have to do something. I have to create something that'll be, individualized and real. I wanted the book to feel very real and authentic and not like cookie cutter. Here's a 5-step approach, and those are great, but I don't know that we can all be solved in 5 steps. And so I wanted something that people felt like, I can take this. And if I can't afford therapy, if I don't believe in therapy, if I don't want to acknowledge where I'm struggling, but I just might be interested in what she has to talk about, it would give them a resource.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, and of course, we've all experienced, I mean, the one world commonality, right, is experiencing the pandemic, and being able, having that one moment of time where you're actually sitting still and all of a sudden all these things are coming at you.
Yes.
Right. And you're having to deal with every single I guess mindset
Yeah.
as you're just sitting there. Luckily for some, they're busy enough with work, but then there's still that, you can't get out. You don't have the ability to go out and be with people. I like talked a little bit about this wallowing into this mindset. I call it it's part of like a rediscovery, because like there's a pool of water, and as a kid you want to go into that pool of water because kids love pools of water. But finding and then seeing your reflection in there, the way I visualized when I was reading your book was that going in there, seeing your reflection, stepping into that pool of water, sitting in it, wallowing in it, and next thing you know, you're not getting out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And that can happen when we get stuck, right, in a particular mindset. And that's how we know that mindset is no longer useful. When we realize, like, I'm surrounded by all of these reflective pictures and thoughts I have about myself or how other people perceive me, but they're flooding me, they're weighing me down, or I feel like feel like you're drowning in them. If you've ever had that experience where it's just this constant noise of, am I keeping up? Am I doing well enough here? Should I be doing more? Those mindsets, again, have balance, but they can be flooding. And it's important for us to go, wait a minute, I'm sitting here, which means I'm actually in a place where I could stand up and I can, move my position or look down and grab some of those things and get them out of, that pool of water. So just wanting, like you said, to empower people that you have the ability to shift what you believe at any given point. It takes work, but you have the ability.
Yes. But also, so when you're talking to someone, how do you get them to recognize that they're able to stand up? They're able to change their mind, or they're able to move. I think sometimes, like you said, we're drowning in all these. What would be the first step, you think, that would be ideal for an individual, or those of us who see an individual in that position? What can we tell them?
Yeah, I think the first step goes back to what you said, that individual and we as individuals, we have to decide to stand on our own, because if you think about the concept of, if I'm trying to help you get out of the water, the gravity of you sitting and me standing, your gravity of being down will pull me in, right? By inertia. I know that sounds really like scientific, but it's true. So I think we have to be cautious about knowing what's my work on, standing up and moving away from my own pool versus I can encourage someone by telling them, hey, this is what has been helpful to me, but every person has to take their own personal responsibility. And then usually the first step that I try to get people to kind of engage in is acknowledging what's the cost of sitting there, right?
Interesting.
What are you experiencing by inaction, by not moving, right? Because sometimes we can be so comfortable sitting in that pool that we don't really recognize, I'm exhausted, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I am overwhelmed, I feel disconnected. So we have to acknowledge this might seem safe, but I don't feel great here. So once the cost is, pointed out and they recognize I'm hurting myself by sitting here, then it's, are you now open to another option? Right? What if?
Yeah. What if is right. That's right. So, kind of, I don't know, I'm jumping from one to another here and some
Totally
questions,
fine.
but I love, like I said, it's a very organic conversation or discussion. Defining expired, by the way, I love the title, Expired Mindsets. So how do you define that, number one? And you've kind of touched on it, but also an example from your own life, on how, and from others, and how you've helped them through your work. Can you talk to us a little
Sure.
about
So I love using the analogy of expired when we think about food. We spend, a daily amount of time, weekly, looking at food that has expired because we know if I consume this food beyond the expiration date, it increases the chances that I will be sick or it will be
that?
harmful to our body. So I want people to then think about an expired mindset in the same way. At one point in my life, this mindset was valuable. It was something that was helpful to me. But at this date and season and context of my life, it is now making me unwell. It is now harmful for me. So I need to recognize this was great then, and now I need to let it go. I think a great example for my own life will be because of my early experiences with a father who wasn't present and who didn't really understand and have the skills around being a father. I went into life when it came to my relationship with men and said, I don't need anyone. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be by myself. You are negotiable. I just set some very hard mindsets in my life to create distance, right? And to prevent me from feeling like anyone else could hurt me or abandon me or reject me.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
lo and behold, I go to college and meet this fine man that is now my husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And thank you,
having
God,
that,
for that, right? Yes,
yes, but
absolutely.
then there's a lot of fear around, wait a minute, I've spent 19, 20 years telling myself that I wouldn't need, someone to love me other than myself. And now I either hold on to that mindset and miss out on what I actually wanted, which was the safety and security of someone loving me and not leaving, or you hold on to it too long and then you realize, well, why do I keep getting in relationships that don't go anywhere? Because you're not letting people in because somewhere along the way that became unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be an example from my own life of how something that was useful because I needed to put that distance there so that I could separate enough to continue to grow up as a child and do different things. But in another season of life, I had to make a choice.
Follow Voice America at facebook.com/Voice America for juicy updates from your favorite radio shows and podcasts.
Third Eye Bio LLC marries expertise from across several fields to create a novel platform that assists startup, small, and mid-cap companies attempting to break into the fast-paced biotech sector. With over 30 years in the biotech and life science industries, they have the experience, knowledge, and relationships to help architect and guide your company's goals and initiatives. They have developed a comprehensive approach, each being led and managed by seasoned industry professionals covering all the necessary elements needed for new company success and market breakthrough.
Enjoying our shows and can't get enough of us? Follow us on Instagram at Voice America Talk Radio and see what we're cooking up for you.
You are listening to Women, Life, and Science. Have a question for Cecilia or her guests? Email Cecilia at cecilia.zh@wlscience.com. Now back to the show with Cecilia.
Yeah, which ties into what you also refer to as releasing patterns.
Yes.
Yeah. And recognizing some patterns, although at the time you probably didn't recognize some patterns, but
Yeah, you don't recognize patterns often until something brings you face to face with, if I continue this pattern, I'm actually not going to get what I desire. So a lot of patterns we put in place because they're repetition, they're automatic. It's how we're responding to what's happening around us. But you'll hit a point where then you realize this is not okay. I think I'll give you an example also about relationships from a client that I worked with. She had been single for a great deal of her life. And so really had just kind of accustomed or acclimated herself to the fact that I'm going to be by myself forever.
forever. Yeah.
forever. And I'm
Yeah.
okay with it. You know, she was like, I've come to peace with this. Then lo and behold, she meets a man and really great guy and wonderful, but also recognize how much she was resisting that process because she had lost confidence in herself and in her ability to trust herself. She thought because of what she had been through in life, she felt a little damaged or like, you know, he only knows this side of who I am. That was her mindset. If he saw the real me, I don't know if he would stay. So think about the number of people that walk around and who they are is really a facade of what they believe is acceptable and how they'll belong.
Yeah.
And it could be a little different. So in our work, we went through the process that I talked about earlier of what's the cost
Mm-hmm.
of how you are showing up right now and what you show the world versus who you really are. Then we went through the process of curiosity, right? So it's important that when a mindset needs to be expired, that the individual feels like they get to choose whether or
Yeah.
not they release it. Like releasing needs to be something that feels like I decided to open myself up to letting it go versus it was taken or I had to. Otherwise, who's signing up to have something pulled, right?
Yeah. Big message there.
Yeah.
There's a personal accountability at the same time, a personal power, because you
Yes.
made a decision for yourself
Yeah.
that I'm going to open myself up
Yes.
versus, like you said, having someone else try to pry that door open,
Yeah.
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 and then taking it away from you.
Yeah.
Big aha moment and big light bulbs were,
Yeah.
I obviously I have a couple of friends that are also sort of in that situation.
Mhm.
And I think I'm going to tell them to listen to this show
Yes.
and read the
Yeah.
book because
Yes.
it's a pattern, right? It's
Mhm.
something that we just sort of, it was comfortable, it's
Yeah.
easy, it's familiar,
Mhm.
and we keep doing it
Right.
until that one day where
Yeah.
you're headed,
Right.
you meet something and
Mhm.
or meet someone or something
Or a
that pulls you,
situation or an
situation.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be all at once. You think about when we release a balloon, it takes time to come out of our hands and slowly float up and away. So that personal power also means that small steps create big changes, right? It's not
Yes,
about you have to wake
absolutely.
up today. And that's why I said we have to be careful how we encourage other people, because when it's not our struggle, it's very easy for us to say, well, just do this. This
Yeah.
is just what I did. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, if it was that easy, I would have done it already. But
Yes.
it's just helping each person recognize you can just make little steps. And then I want you to always understand, and what do I need that helps me feel safe to release these patterns? Because if my patterns are conducive to my environment, then it requires a level, a felt sense of it's okay. I'm giving myself permission, but I also need people around me that don't, force me into certain response patterns and give me that room as well, so that I can little by little kind of build up the confidence to go, you know what? I genuinely think I'm okay, and I don't have to talk to myself this way anymore. I don't need
Yes.
this pattern to feel safe. I'm ready to release it and let it go.
Yes. Again, that, and which goes right into you mentioned a strategy for self-awareness
Mhm,
or the importance of self-awareness,
mhm.
right? In order to move into the direction of changing those mindsets. How can someone improve their self-awareness? What are some
Yeah.
of those tools that you would recommend?
Yeah. Mindfulness is one of the best tools to increase your self-awareness. And a lot of times people may take that to a place that feels like it's overwhelming. Mindfulness can look like taking 1 minute, 3 or 4 times a day to stop, to breathe, and to ask yourself, what do I need? What am I noticing? And how can I respond to what I notice and I need? So the example would be maybe I notice, man, my breathing feels shallow, my shoulders feel heavy. I'm noticing that I'm anxious. And what I need is less things on my plate today because I'm feeling overwhelmed. And so, how can I respond? That might mean calling a friend and go, I know that we were supposed to meet tonight, but you won't receive the best of me. I would love to make a rain check and for us to meet later this weekend. And that takes a lot of courage, but then there's this sense of relief of knowing, okay, because what I really need is to go home and do nothing for a little while and not feel like I have to show up and operate in a way that isn't what I have in my tank today.
Yeah, absolutely. The phrase that I remember sometimes I tell myself, all right, just rally, even though I know that I'm not in the just rally. I just rally, right?
Yeah.
You're tired, you're mentally exhausted, or something happened that day. So it's okay to acknowledge that you personally need the time to just be by myself, kind of thing. Yeah.
And another one that I love is sitting down at the end of the day and asking yourself, what went well today?
Oh,
right? You're like, wait, people, because we take a lot of time thinking about what we didn't do and what was a disaster, but that can overtake your entire day. But to literally practice what went well today.
Yes.
Because that's training your brain to focus on where you have been very successful and that your whole day wasn't that one moment that you didn't like.
Yes. So a little celebration, a little nugget of celebration during the day.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to remember that. What went well today? I'm writing it down.
Yeah. And it's a great thing to do with your kids. Or at dinner, just to get them into the habit of going, oh, well, I was actually really proud of myself when someone said something to me I didn't like. And I told them, that is incredible. Way to use your voice. Because again, we can be very transactional with ourselves. Like, what did I do? What did I not do? When we ask ourselves, what went well today? We've moved from a transaction to a transformation. We've moved into this transformational awareness because our brain loves success. So when we feel like we've been successful, it makes us like, I'm going to sleep well tonight. And then I'm ready to take on the next day because I'm going to find something else that went well. And we start shifting into seeing the positive.
So true. So true. I love that. So how can there are some principles that you talk about in the book. What do you recommend? How can people apply those principles to overcome those, limiting beliefs and self-talk?
So self-talk. One kind of basic principle that I talk about is the concept of reflecting, which we just talked about a little bit. Restoring is often restoring the body's balance. We're always seeking a state of balance, the homeostasis. And a lot of the things that we do to manage nervous energy are a way to seek balance. And that really comes from paying more attention to environments and people that are distressing to us and really creating some good boundaries and how much we're interacting with them. So boundaries is a principle of inspiring mindset.
Big message. Big message. Yes.
Because people will sometimes just overstep in ways that make it difficult for you to give yourself permission because you're trying to get out of, conflict. And then the last one that I talk about, just in particular of this set, is called a recalibration. And it's really where you're rewriting what you believe about yourself. Because if you have a mindset that is, my voice doesn't matter, so why speak up? Well, you become what you believe. So if you continue to tell yourself, my voice doesn't matter, you're going to believe that and then miss out on opportunities. And the world really does want to know what you have to say in your unique perspective. So I'm a big proponent of literally taking a piece of paper and going, are there any words in that mindset that I am willing to exchange so that that belief moves from negative to neutral and then neutral to positive, but it's a journey. And so maybe I go from my voice doesn't matter, so why speak up, to my voice has unique perspective that someone may want to hear.
Yes. Yeah.
And just notice the shift in how you feel and how that just opens up the possibility that there will always, that's one thing we can say about the world. There's always someone out there who wants to hear what you have
But
to
there's
say,
always, yes, there's always a
regardless
message.
of what
Yes,
it is.
exactly. Or
Yeah.
or also, in fact, I'm reading another book right now. It's called The Courage to be Disliked, which has
Oh.
that same preface.
Yeah.
I met with, I mentor a bunch of young professionals.
Yeah.
And I met with someone, one of my mentees, Wednesday night. And one of the things that she said to me was, "Oh, I'm in this meeting. I'm the only woman in the room." And for the most part, she doesn't really say anything because she was saying that self-talk. What I have to say gets drowned out anyway, and no one really listens or no one really hears any of the things that she says. But I guess there was a topic, and she absolutely was just passionate about this specific topic. And she couldn't stand it anymore. She finally just said, "Fine, I'm just going to say."
She came face to face with her moment of like,
yes, her moment of truth. And it's like just nagging at her because she's really passionate about this one topic.
Yeah.
So she said she raised her hand, like literally like she was in school. She said she raised her hand. And then the person that was in front of the room obviously noticed, right, while that person was talking, and said, okay, called her, "Yes, do you have a question?" And she said, "No, I don't have a question, but I have comment about," and she just laid it out.
Yes.
And she said she was all sweaty. She was like all turned red because it was not something that she's used to saying. But again, like you said, she came face to face to something that she absolutely needed to change a pattern.
Yeah.
At the end of that meeting, which the whole message behind it was that she said there was another person in the room who talked to her afterwards that was part of the team in this one topic, and said to her at the end of that meeting, "That was the best idea anybody can come up with.
Wow.
Let's talk some more." And yes. So, I mean, that was just one of those things. And you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
If we don't, I mean, of course, you have to be mindful of when the right opportunity. But if sometimes you do have to say something and voice it out.
And it just opens up so much.
Yes.
I can resonate with that in two ways. One, I was terrified to write this book. So prior to this book, all of my writing was academic. Terrified. Tears were involved in writing this book because I wasn't sure that I could translate academic concepts or mind and, put it together in writing. I also have complex ADHD, so I'm a neurodivergent, and formulating and structuring and organizing thoughts in writing is very difficult. Talking is different because you can tangent and you can move things around, but it's really challenging. And I was terrified. So I really went into it thinking, well, there's going to be one person out there that needs this. And if what I say gets to this one person, then it was worth everything that I went through in order to put it out there. So I want to say that to anybody who's listening and feels like, what if, and I've never done it before, and, what if nobody likes it? I try to do things from the space of the one. Yes. And anything above that is just a bonus. So it can be terrifying no matter who you are.
Absolutely.
But the opportunities that have been open for other people to hear and resonate have been worth it. And so I think I mentioned it somewhere in the book, but if not, I know it's something that I constantly tell people. The whole purpose of getting past your expired mindsets is to increase your potential, is to open up you to your purpose and the fact that there's so many new and amazing and incredibly fulfilling things that you will try when you're no longer holding on or weighed down by all the mess. So it frees you up. So I love that for her.
Yes, absolutely. Which is one of the reasons why I started this podcast, actually. At one point, never done a podcast before. And, I'm like, oh my God, I sound horrible recorded, It's just, again, the self-talk. I mean, the whole self-talk. But I was passionate enough and I've always wanted to have, and I said this, I remember saying it out loud to myself, wouldn't it be great to have a digital platform where women, like-minded women, life and science, can talk about life, number one. Number two, the opportunity to tell the story, a story, their story, book stories. And I also, by the way, believe that books have echoes. But not necessarily to just, have millions and millions of listeners, really. Right. But it's more from touching that one.
Yes.
Because I think if touching one person and hearing that story that changes the direction of where they're going or their strategy or their purpose in life is enough.
Right.
And I think that's absolutely fantastic and your book actually, I noticed that right away. It's like, okay, it's not a like a how-to, step one, do this, step two. It's actually, it touches a string of events.
Yes.
But you come back to that other event because there's more to do in that particular event.
Yeah.
But then you can come back out again and go to the other way. That's how I looked at it.
Yes.
Voice America is on LinkedIn. Connect with us today.
Third Eye Bio LLC marries expertise from across several fields to create a novel platform that assists startup, small, and mid-cap companies attempting to break into the fast-paced biotech sector. With over 30 years in the biotech and life science industries, they have the experience, knowledge, and relationships to help architect and guide your company's goals and initiatives. They have developed a comprehensive approach, each being led and managed by seasoned industry professionals covering all the necessary elements needed for new company success and market breakthrough.
A little birdie told me Voice America is on Twitter. Follow us at Voice America TRN.
You are listening to Women, Life, and Science. Have a question for Cecilia or her guests? Email Cecilia at cecilia.zh@wlscience.com. Now back to the show with Cecilia.
And that is spot on. And I did that intentionally because we beat ourselves up for repeating situation, right? We often go, oh, why am I back here again? But it's like, wait. You might be in this situation again, but you're not coming in as the same person.
Yes, exactly.
So
you're stronger, you're different.
You're stronger. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so that was intentional because that's more realistic to life. Like you're going to be tested. I'm writing another book right now. There are no tears, but it's still the same dynamic around, okay, can I do, that's just going to be part of the process, but it doesn't feel like the first time, right? So there's always a strength that you carry with you. And I want people to know, and it sounds like you have experienced this so much. And I can tell that in your prior podcast and on the women that you have. Life is such a journey. And we have to be more compassionate when it comes to giving ourselves time to change So for me, the concept of a how to, and this is a strong word, but it's kind of bullying
Mm-hmm.
yourself. It's kind of oppressive into, well, I did the 6 steps. I should be fixed
Mm-hmm.
now. And I don't want you to view yourself. I don't want anybody to view themselves as broken or, you know, unable to be fixed. I want you to see it as like, oh, this is what I'm carrying, but I can let things go. And I talk a lot about owning your story, which you talk about on your
Yes.
podcast. Owning your story means I have to accept that there are certain ways that I respond because of what I've been through. And
Yes.
it doesn't mean that those things are bad. Some of those things I just need to protect and know that if I'm an individual that had a prior relationship with a narcissist, and I'm just using this as an example, a friend and I were talking about this recently, and she is in a partnership where she's experiencing some of those same things happening between her and the leadership, and it's causing her to feel the way she felt in that abusive relationship. So she can
Mm-hmm.
do one of two things, right? She can go, no, I've got to figure this out and push through, but I'm crying. She's crying. Her stomach is sick. She's feeling overwhelmed. She's feeling manipulated. It's making her feel like her thoughts aren't valid. Or she can recognize, I've endured that. I've gotten past that. I fought through that. And my body and my emotions are firing off because they're trying to tell me, hey, we're not okay in this
Yeah.
environment. So when I own my story, I give myself permission to go, my personal beliefs, traumas, and histories will dictate the kind of environments that are healthy for me. And that's not a fault. And that doesn't mean I
Yeah.
failed. That means
Yeah.
I'm protecting my healing.
Yes. Yeah. And it's okay to feel what you're feeling because you have experienced those things, but
Yes.
also know that because you're, again, self-aware,
Yes.
right? You're able to change some of your reactive
Correct.
or reactions
Yeah.
to certain situations that sort of makes you feel uncomfortable or
Yes.
reminds you of something really traumatic from your past. I love that. I just absolutely love that, which means that, again, impacting the society in the future, that's
Mhm.
really that's what it's about. It's
Yeah.
really getting to that point of you're just letting people understand who they are, what makes them tick, what
Yes.
happened in the past. But again, changing you're allowed to change your
Yes.
mindsets, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our response, like you just said, that's the only thing we can truly choose. Control is a myth. We don't really have control over most of the things in our life,
Yeah.
but we get to choose what we believe and we get to choose what we respond, but those are going to go hand in hand. So if my beliefs aren't healthy, my responses aren't going to be healthy. But if I
Yes.
shift my beliefs, it's going to shift my responses. And then that's how I create a life I don't have to escape.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to shift topics for a second. Well,
Okay.
not for a second, for the next topic. I'm curious about Jade.
Okay.
What got you started with Jade Integrative Counseling and Wellness?
Yeah. So I started Jade after I was working in a residential day treatment facility with people that needed Monday through Friday intensive care. And we were coming into the time where they needed to go off and find like individual outpatient providers. And it was a struggle. But the biggest struggle was that there are some schools of therapy that are
Mm-hmm.
very symptom management. So they just focus on let's fix this one thing and let's, then fix this next thing, kind of like whack-a-mole, which is an old game where you hit one thing and another thing pops up. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to create a practice that was what I call integrative. And integrative well-being is not a concept I created, but it means that when I'm working with someone, we're not just looking at, oh, I'm anxious, let's get rid of the anxiety. So we look at how is that showing up for you physically, mentally, financially,
Mm-hmm.
socially, and emotionally, and then sometimes spiritually, because whatever you're experiencing is impacted by every domain in your life. So sustainable healing means I'm not only going to work on the anxiety, but I'm going to have more self-awareness around how all of these areas of my life add to my recipe of anxiety. And jade in itself is a healing color and
It
stone,
is. Yes.
which I love. And as I was kind of searching for names and I'm big, of course, on meaning and saw that, I was like, this is perfect and just really speaks to what I hope people experience as we work together.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I would love to see that model duplicated in many different locations. I think it's necessary.
Mhm.
That would be. I wish that a lot of expansion happens for
Yeah.
Jade. You know, so
Yeah. Yeah.
that's phenomenal. So we're coming to the end of our show, but I always like to do like a rapid response sort of
Okay, let's do it.
questions. You ready? All right. So I always like to ask the question of what was the worst advice you've ever received? And did
Oh,
you believe it, or what did you do with it?
yeah. Worst advice I've ever received is just ignore it. And I don't. I
Yeah.
always kind of hesitated when someone says that because I feel like, well, but if I brought it up, as a situation and then I'm ignoring it, I'm also then ignoring myself. I'm minimizing and dismissing myself. But I believe we give that advice so often. Oh, just ignore it. Like, what are we
Yes.
really saying to
Yeah.
someone? Like it could be something deeper. So nope, didn't listen to it.
That's good. That's great. What's the best advice?
Best advice would come from my mother,
Mm.
who told me a million times there is nothing you can't accomplish if you put your mind to it. And so I tell people, I don't know if it's from what she said, if I was born this way, but there is this literal part of my brain and belief system that says if I want to accomplish something, it, it's going to happen. Like I might
Yeah.
have to figure some things out. I might need support. I might need resources, but it can happen and it is possible. But she would say that over and over and over again. And fun story is I found out later in life that she had a different statement that she used with myself and all of my siblings. Like each of us kind of had a statement, which I'm
Really?
the youngest. I had no idea that, that was happening. And I don't know if she
Yeah.
did it intentionally, but I still hold to that. And it's a great source of motivation.
Well, your mom probably recognized strengths, right, from each
Yeah.
one of you, and for you, that was the being the youngest. That was
Hmm.
the thing that she saw. My mom would still to this day, she'll tell me the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, just do it is basically what
I
she
love it.
says. It's like
I
just do
love
it.
it.
Okay, I'll just do it.
Okay,
And so
Mom.
I do, right?
Yes.
You like you said, you find the resources and you figure it out and you
Hmm.
just do it because it's heartfelt and you're passionate about it.
Hmm.
All right, last question.
Okay.
If you are to have dinner
Mhm.
with one woman in history,
Oh,
who would it be? And what would be the first question that you'll ask her?
wow. A woman in history. That is a tough one. It sounds cliche, but I honestly think it would be Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
I just have so much appreciation and respect for what she does. And I think the question that I would ask her is, has it been worth it?
Uh-huh. Especially
Right?
now that she's
Yeah.
behind the scenes and not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like she's been through now. I don't even know that I would have chose her as the person 20 years ago, but now seeing her on this side and watching all of the stages, that she's gone through and how she's choosing to give, I would love to go, has it been worth it? Because I'm curious. We can see outwardly the benefit,
Yes.
but I also imagine that there are also some cost, that
Yes.
we are completely unaware of.
Yes.
And I would just be curious.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that therapist in you and the
Yeah.
expired mindset sort
Yes.
of
Yes.
philosophy in
Yeah.
you. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, we have to end our show. I
Okay.
so appreciate you, Charisse. And we could keep going and talking about this
Yeah.
for a long, long, long time. Thank you for sharing your story and your journey. And I recommend for the listeners to pick up expired mindsets. It really is. I mean, I have it. I may drive to Charlotte actually and have you sign it.
Yes, come on. Or I'll have to let you know the next time I'm in Greenville, because I'm literally there several times a year. So I have a close friend who lives out that way. So
yeah. Well, maybe come and see. Well, of course, this is not until April, but we're turning Women, Life, and Science into a conference in April.
Are you serious? April 2024?
Yes.
Okay, send me the information.
Okay, I'll send you the information. We'll definitely do that. Anyway, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me and for holding and creating this space, because it is so refreshing and so wonderful.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. All right, so thank you everyone for listening to Women, Life, and Science. See you next week. In the meantime, stay fabulous and true.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Women, Life, and Science. We hope Cecilia and her guests enlightened you as you walk your own path.